Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Good Old Podcast. I'm Jackie Franchuli for Wahoo's 24/7. And it's been a while. There's a lot of stuff that's happened since the last time that I had a podcast. We took a little bit of a break because the portal was absolutely chaotic, but we have our recap show of what happened during the portal, what it means for Virginia, and what's next for Virginia. We also have Cav Futures Executive Director Lo Davis. He will join us on the show to discuss how everything happened in December, how things were different this year in the portal, and again, what's next for the Virginia Athletics program as they continue to kind of go through the process of adjusting to college football's landscape as new regulations come, the House settlement, and that decision of how that will be implemented so that how that affects the university and college football in general. So a lot is coming on the show. Before we get going, if you're watching and listening to this show on YouTube, why don't you go ahead and like this video, like this content, like this channel, and also click on the bell so that you're notified whenever we post a video on YouTube. And also go ahead and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it be Apple or Spotify or whatever platform you choose, so that we continue to grow the podcast. And just with all the information coming, why don't you go ahead and also check out Wahoo's 24/7. We're currently running a 30% off promo if you want to upgrade your subscription. So why don't you go to Wahoo's 24/7, where we have all the inside information as things tend to change really quickly in the portal. If you followed us on Wahoo's 24/7 during the month of December, you know that things happen really quickly. Within the 24 hours, a visitor list could change pretty drastically. But you also get to know where things are trending pretty quickly. We were able to get ahead of a lot of those commitments prior to them being announced publicly, so that you can have kind of know where things are going, where things are trending away as well. And Virginia is not done in the portal. I'm going to emphasize that Virginia is not done in the portal. So before we get going on which positions they're going to go after, let's talk about who they got. So on our Wahoo's 24/7 page, you'll see that we have all the transfers there listed. There's currently 17 transfers for Virginia. When you look at it, you can see that Monroe Mills, a Louisville offensive lineman, one of the second to last commitments that Virginia was able to get, and obviously already on grounds. He was the highest rated guy in this transfer class at 91, but Virginia was able to pick up a few good guys like wide receiver Cam Ross from JMU, ranked 88. They were also able to pick up a good number of good guys that in much needed position. Obviously, you can see the offensive line was certainly an area of focus for Virginia, picking up not only Monroe Mills, but also Kevin Wigington, Tyshawn Wyatt, and Brady Wilson as some of the offensive linemen that they were able to get. They also really, really hunkered down and reinforced the other side of the trenches as well, with Alabama defensive lineman Hunter Osborne transferring to Virginia. They were also able to get Kazim Moore, an edge rusher out of Elon, and Fisher Kamek out of UNLV. Those are three guys that obviously Virginia needed. And also defensive tackle Jacob Holmes. He was one of the first commitments during that kind of first week that they were able to get some pledges in. So Virginia really reinforcing the trenches the last few weeks here, but also getting the first two quarterbacks that they wanted on their board. That's something that you need to really applaud Virginia in. Prior to entering the portal, like kind of this crazy period, Tony Elliott and his staff wanted to bring two quarterbacks in, which is it's a pretty tough ask for any program to do. And then they highlighted two guys, Daniel Kaling and Chandler Morris, as their top two quarterbacks options. And they wanted a veteran like Chandler Morris and then a guy that can, move up into the system in the process. And that's hard to do when you're into the portal because obviously quarterbacks want to play. So they were able to get two guys through relationships, which is a key for Virginia. Chandler Morris obviously is well connected to the staff. Several members of the staff already through obviously the relationship with Tony Elliott and his father, Chad Morris, but also through the other staff that he has known like several of the recruiting staff members. So that was key for Virginia there. And obviously Daniel Kalen was another relationship guy. He liked Taylor Lamb. He liked that relationship there. And we actually talked a little bit about that relationship in our feature on Daniel Kalen that you can check out on the site currently. His quarterbacks coach kind of broke down why he wanted to go to Virginia and that Taylor Lamb connection and why he wanted to go there. So again, this is a very good class for Virginia where they really went in and they got a lot of the positions that they wanted, right? They took care of the offensive line. They took care of that defensive line. They picked up a running back in Jamari Taylor. They finished what they wanted with the quarterbacks. They had 2 there. They picked up 1 linebacker in Maddox Marcellus. They picked up the long snapper that they want. And they picked up 2 wide receivers in Cam Ross and Jamal Edrin. On Wahoo's 24/7, we were able to connect with several of these transfers to let them explain why they chose Virginia football. We did features on all of them. We mentioned Daniel Kalen talking about the relationship with Taylor Lamb. We talked to Kazim Moore and how his relationship with Kevin Downing kind of helped him come to Virginia because they both come from that same area in North Carolina. Then you had, Hunter Osborne talking about that Zoom call with Kevin Downing, how that helped him realize that he wanted to take that UVA visit. He didn't know much about Virginia. He knew about Tony Elliott because of his recruitment process during his high school years while Tony Elliott was at Clemson, but he didn't know much about Kevin Downing. And it was a Zoom call with Kevin Downing that allowed him to trust Downing enough to come visit Virginia. So we were able to talk to each of them. So what we have now is I put together a couple of audio clips of some of these guys and what they said their reason was for choosing Virginia.
I think just right away after, my name was in the portal, they were one of the first schools to reach out. And it was really clear how much they truly wanted me and the type of player that they thought I was. They thought very highly of me as a player. So that's why I made a priority to get out there as soon as I could and visit. And I love the campus. It's a really cool area. But I think just overall, it's an incredible coaching staff. Coach Elliott obviously has a lot of pedigree being on some elite teams in college football. And I think I personally have a lot of confidence that, he definitely has a great blueprint to do that again at UVA. And I think everyone else on the coaching staff is aligned with him. And I think they have a lot of momentum going into this offseason to continue to build on what they've done so far. And I'm excited to be a part of it.
It was amazing, honestly. It was a long process, but I ultimately, decided to take a leap on faith when I entered the transfer portal to begin with. And, I was trusting God to, lead me down the right path. Ultimately, he led me to Coach Elliott in Virginia, and it feels like the best decision.
What was it about, Virginia on this visit that kind of steered you towards them?
Listening to Coach Elliott and Coach Downing talk, I could really see the vision that he has for the program. A smaller, by a smaller amount each and every single year, and it takes time to build up a program. But I see the vision that, Coach Elliott has in store for them. And, after hearing him talk, after building a relationship with, Coach Elliott, Coach Downing, a bunch of the coaches on staff, the plan and the future looks bright, and it's just something I want to be a part of.
You knew a little bit about Virginia before. Coach Adams and Coach Elliott showed so much love, and obviously I would have, I don't know. Jason was definitely a big part of it. I think I would have came regardless, but Jason just added it on for sure.
What was it about, Elliott and Mike Adams that got you so interested, and you say you probably would have chosen Virginia regardless?
Yeah. I mean, with those two, it's literally just genuine energy I got from not saying any other coach wasn't genuine, but it's just like that feeling that me and my family had when we were talking to them, and just the energy and the vibes they gave off. It made me feel very comfortable, and I know it made my parents and my family feel very comfortable.
So a lot of good stuff from these guys talking about why they wanted to come to Virginia. They already at UVA. All these 17 transfers are already on grounds preparing for winter workouts, or actually already in winter workouts, preparing for the spring, which the spring game is going to be on April 12th. So that's your first time an opportunity to see them in person. Obviously, Wahoo's 24/7 will be covering spring football, so you'll have other opportunities to see them. We'll also have sights and sounds and all that coming up. But Virginia isn't done. I know it's January 20th. School has started, classes have started, but Virginia still has a few days before the cutoff time for Virginia and enrolling guys into class. And Virginia will be trying to add a couple more guys to the roster. Now, will they? There are things that might need to happen before then, but Virginia is still actively recruiting. And then obviously in the spring portal, Virginia should be active once again. I get this question a lot. Jackie, they're over the 85 scholarship limit. Yes, I know. Don't worry about that. Numbers will work out. That is my mantra. That's my motto. And things are already happening behind the scenes for that to work. So when you look at the positions, Virginia already has 2 quarterbacks. So that is done. Virginia should be done at quarterback and is expected to be done at quarterback. At running back, Virginia was looking to possibly add 1 or 2 at that position. They picked up 1 in Jamaria Taylor. Can they pick up someone else? We're going to see in spring how things work out there, but at the moment they have 1 addition. At wide receiver, Virginia picked up 2. Can they pick up 1 more? Possibly. I think that's an area where you can see Virginia looking in because you lost a few guys in J.R. Wilson and Malachi Fields. They really wish they kept Malachi Fields. Malachi Fields will be transferring to Notre Dame, and then J.R. Wilson's heading to Florida. So that is definitely one position that Virginia could very well see a possibility of adding a guy. I do not foresee Virginia picking up a tight end. I think it's a best guy in the portal situation, kind of like Kobe Pace was that year where they didn't expect to get a running back, but if he went in the portal and wanted to come to Virginia, then they accepted him. But I don't think a tight end is a position where Virginia is going to actively seek out a guy to come join. The trenches, I think Virginia is still looking to add at that position. If you're a Wahoo's 24/7 subscriber, I already mentioned a guy on the defensive line that Virginia is looking at. So that's for our VIP subscribers. Since the transport is it's a thing that happens and changes quite frequently. So right now there is an edge rusher that Virginia is looking at on the defensive line. And I think with the O-line, I think if Virginia can add to the O-line, possibly. So it is one where to kind of keep an eye out there. Moving from the trenches on both sides, we got linebacker with the addition of Maddox Marcellus and keeping Cam Robinson for another year. And also we have James Jackson for another year. And then you have Trey McDonald coming back and Stevie Bracey there. I think Virginia is done at that position. I have not heard anyone connected to Virginia as far as the linebacker position in quite a while. So Maddox Marcellus should be your only transfer at that position. Now, Virginia has picked up 1 safety and 1 corner with safety Devin Neal and cornerback Jason Prevard. And obviously, Prevard Cam is a guy who's pretty versatile, which Virginia likes. Obviously, you can tell last year. But that is definitely a position where I think Virginia would probably like to add more, that cornerback position, possibly another safety. So I think you might look at 1 each, 1 safety, 1 corner, or maybe 2. So that is a position that Virginia will certainly continue to recruit. Again, a lot of things are still up in the air with the portal. You got to wait and see who enters the spring portal. Firstly, you got to see your roster, how things kind of shake up in the spring, but also how the next few days here shape up for Virginia. So a lot of stuff still going on behind the scenes. A little quieter though. A little more time to relax, a little more time for me to sit down and do this podcast, a little more time to get Lo Davis on the show to talk about what happened in the month of December and all the craziness that goes around with it. So we're going to have Lo join us after the break on the show. And there's a lot to talk about with Lo, not only how this month kind of transpired for Virginia, but what led to this aggressiveness. Like how the multi-million-dollar donation, how that changed Virginia's approach, how House Bill 1505 that was signed in April with Governor Youngkin, how that changed their approach. What's next for Virginia with the House settlement possibly changing things once again for how collectives negotiate with recruits? How does UVA adapt to that? So plenty of stuff to discuss with Lo Davis. So stick around because there's a lot more information coming. Hi, welcome back to the Good Old Podcast. I'm Jack Franchuli for Wahoo's 24/7. And like I said before the break, we have a special guest on this week's show, Lo Davis from Cav Futures. Lo, thank you so much for joining us.
Jackie, thanks for having me on.
And I'm hoping you were able to breathe after a really, really busy December for you, a very different December for you than compared to last year. How does it feel I know it's not over, but how does it feel to come somewhat out of that really hectic month and a half?
It really was hectic. And for me and my staff, specifically Emma Chapman, who's our systems coordinator, takes care of contracts and things like that. Literally, the only day that we did not have contact with anyone related to athletics was Christmas Day. So it has been a whirlwind. We've loved the positive results that have come out of it, but it's been different, unlike any other time in college athletics for me specifically, but for the landscape in general.
17 new transfers so far for Virginia. That's a lot of contracts, Lo.
A lot of contracts. We had some swing and misses, but there were prospective student athletes in and out of Charlottesville. It had to happen very, very quickly. As you know, most of this happened during a dead period where coaches couldn't go out. So there was a lot of conversations with agents and families and trying to get people convinced that this was a place that they should look at. So it all happened very fast and furiously, but it was a group effort, and I was glad to be a small part of it.
Do you feel like the plan kind of changed when the week before everything kind of went crazy route when you received a multi-million-dollar donation?
That was just incredible. And I think I said to Preston Willett on his podcast, like literally the recruiting board changed in a matter of 48 hours when that contribution came in. And it really put us in a position to, go after student athletes that probably would have never visited Virginia before. And even though it's not always about the money was certainly enough of a carrot to get people here to see that we were serious about this. We were going to participate at a very high level in the landscape, and not only just in the acquisition side of things, but also on the retention side of things as well.
I was going to say, you went through somewhat like this last December. It's a little different, and we're going to talk about also a House bill that helped you out as well. But how did that money affect just like the initial contact through the agents? Because this year, from me as a reporter, what I noticed, agents had more of a role this year compared to last year.
By far. I mean, there was very little contact with just student athletes or parents. You went through some of that with kind of the high school uncommits, signing period where you talk to families and parents versus agents. But during this transfer process, it literally was first line of communication was with an agent. So for us, what we had to do was kind of understand, who was in the portal, understand kind of a compensation range of what we were looking at. And then literally we would put together an MOU that we would send over to the agent to share with the student athlete. And if they saw that that was a very serious offer and opportunity, then we could set up where they would, come in and visit and go through the recruiting process.
So would you say, obviously, like guys like Justin Spears and his recruiting staff, probably the first line to kind of check in who's in the portal and all that stuff. Would you say you were one of the first people to talking to these recruits too because of the contract aspect of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the thing that was a lot different this year, was that literally I was one heartbeat away from the recruiting office and Justin Speros, who those individuals did a phenomenal job. Tyler Jones, who is, one of the athletic directors, who's the sport administrator for football, just was working extremely hard to, not only get to people who were in the portal, but it was a race. We were not the only game in town. So it was a lot of conversations, a lot of competition out there to try to get student athletes and their families to visit Charlottesville. So it was, again, truly all hands on deck. And I was one heartbeat away from the recruiting office, which was actually a pretty cool experience.
It's very different for me as a reporter. Like I said, one, we talk to the agents, and two, even if a kid's committed, you're still waiting for that signature and negotiations to happen even afterwards, because you negotiated to get him to get on grounds, but then you have to negotiate to make sure that signature is signed, and then admissions after that.
Yes, no question about it. And again, with such a short period of time and turnaround, trying to get everything done in a way where it's a timely fashion, that even if the student athlete chose to come to Virginia, you could get them enrolled in school and get transcripts and all of those things. And so it was a bam process. There was a prospect that I was speaking with last week that in 48 hours, we really thought we had this young man. Dad was involved, agent was involved, the money was where it needed to be, and then all of a sudden they went dark. And so you had some of those things where it may have felt like a waste of time and energy, but you have to go through the process. Like I said, there were some swing and misses on some, but we also got some really good top talent here for this cycle.
For sure. I mean, when you start off by getting both of your quarterback targets, your top two, that's a good way to start your transfer portal haul, Lo.
Absolutely. And I tell you, we're so very fortunate. Last weekend, we met with 66 student athletes from football and met with all of the transfers. The only one I haven't met with yet is Fisher Kamak, and he got in late, so we'll be meeting with him personally pretty soon. But we met with all of them, and they're so thankful to be here at Virginia. Quite a few of them had no idea about what Virginia football and the culture was like in the past. And so once they got here, the resonating message was that they loved the family atmosphere, they loved Coach Elliott, and they want to come here and make a difference. So, once you kind of get that first high-level domino to fall at quarterback, then others tend to follow.
And, we're talking about negotiations and all that stuff, but some states do not have what Virginia has, which is what Governor Youngkin in April signed House Bill 1505, which allows a little bit more of negotiations among university and the collectives and NIL. How much did that change things for you guys? And what does that help you as far as competing against other states that do not have this?
Yeah, it changed very drastically. I mean, for us, when that injunction happened, it allowed us then to go out and talk to prospects, both at the high school level and also at the portal level before they actually matriculated to the university. So, having a conversation then with a high school student who had not yet signed or committed, that was a big difference for us. And it kind of got us out ahead of the game a little bit. I think Virginia's always kind of played a little bit conservative, and I understand why. And I think in most cases that has benefited us because it does allow us to be adaptable and flexible. But when this injunction happened last spring, it just really kind of propelled us forward to go hot and heavy on the recruiting side. And it also allowed me to get more engaged, to learn more about the process, and then talking with current and prospective student athletes.
And how much did it help you? Obviously, you had the schedule. You had early signing day earlier than ever this year. I had in the first week of December. And like you said, coaches we're not able to go on the road, even for high schools, which was also very different. How did that change for you guys and how you were able to adapt?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it just allowed me to understand who was committed, to be able to reach out to those individuals and kind of help with the process to make sure that they knew that from an NIL perspective, they were going to be in good shape coming here. So even though they had committed, given their verbal, you still had to get them to signing day. And so I spoke with quite a few of our incoming class, especially our mid-years, and told them about Cav Futures, told them about the commitment to NIL. And we weren't able to do that before. We had to wait until that student athlete was signed and actually deemed active and matriculated to the university before I could have contact. Now it's early. It's real early. So again, it's exciting. I think it's a necessary thing with some of the student athletes getting agents, but I think the drawback to any of this is not having that first contact with mom and dad and the student athlete to really talk about all things besides money.
So moving forward, Lo, how does this kind of adapt? Obviously, this is the first year you guys have done with both. You got a multi-million-dollar donation. You were able to talk to these guys in a streamlined manner between you and the program. Like you said, you were right next door to the recruiting office. Have you guys adjusted as you go? Have you learned a better process, or how do you feel like this program is going to move forward here?
Yeah, I think this was so new to everyone. It was, let's just survive in advance. And so we were very flexible. There were some things that we kind of figured out later on in the process, how to be more efficient in terms of, getting information back and forth, whether it was to the agents or the student athletes or even back to the university. So I think we learned from a process standpoint that we've gotten this in a better place. When the April portal opens, that's going to be interesting in terms of how all of that works, because again, if this House settlement passes in April, then Cav Futures and the way that we conduct business will make a shift starting July 1st. And so, being able to look at what we have to offer for an April transfer portal, how do we conduct these contracts so that it's permissible and not viewed as, unfair market value and so forth. Those are the things that we're huddling up around right now to figure out how we do it going forward. But the House settlement will dictate a lot come April, and we'll know more when this thing passes or gets moved on.
That's going to be my next question, is because the program, the ACC, everyone has this cloud over their heads because you don't know what's next. I mean, right now, everyone has 85 scholarships. They could be 105 in April.
That's right.
You have a salary cap, as you may, if you want to call it that. What's the difficulties there for you? Because you're doing a job, you have to plan for plan A, but then someone can come in and says, actually, we're going to switch it mid-season before even the season comes in.
So we have plan A, B, and C. And right now, there is no House settlement in my mind. It's a pending case. So we are conducting business as usual. And I think the one benefit for us is that we have always conducted business in a way that's ethical and moral. We can prove the work that's being done, so that if we have to get into a crunch where we have basically 90 days to get student athletes committed and doing work, we think we can have everything planned so that if we're audited, then we can show, that we're true and just in all of this. So really for us, we're planning some other measures. I know that once the House settlement passes, collectives won't technically be able to act in the capacity that they're acting now, with being fundraisers and creating the quid pro quo to spend those dollars. So for us, we're going to look more to adjusting to being a traditional marketing company and working with the student athletes to get true NIL and endorsement deals. So that's kind of what we're working on in the background. But right now it's business as usual. And we have a lot of athletes to get work and get paid.
Well, that was actually my question, is because obviously there's so much stuff going on with the House settlement that there's so many fine prints. There's so many confusion about it. So basically it's the collective cannot negotiate for these contracts, like in the recruiting aspects, but they can negotiate marketing deals. Is that that's my understanding of it?
That is your understanding. And there will be a lot of collectives that will probably fold and go away because, quite honestly, from day one, we've always set out to make this run like a real business and not a Venmo account. And, not all collectives play by those same rules. So now being able to shift in terms of your operations and do more of the marketing side, we've been doing that since our first deal with McDonald's and Rick Hendricks and his group. And so we're pushing more to doing things like that. We've got a great opportunity that we're working on now with Papa Tui, which is a company that's owned by The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. So we're looking at for a great partnership with them. We worked with Ting Internet and others. And so really our focus now is how can we go out and create more traditional sponsorships for our student athletes.
Lo, I remember our first interview when you just got signed on Cav Futures. You said you didn't want your athletes to sell the burger. You wanted them to own the burger stand.
Bingo.
And now with the future of Cav Futures, you're kind of in limbo, trying to see which way things are going to go with the House settlement. How happy are you with how much Cav Futures not only has grown? You added so many new faces, like Caroline Darney helping you with the marketing aspect of the foundation. How much have you liked how this Cav Futures has grown, and where do you want to see them grow in the future?
I tell you, Jackie, I do. I go back to when we first spoke, and I think for me, I rolled the dice. Like there was a huge unknown of where this thing was going to go, and just in full transparency, I was hoping we could make it a year, and see what happens. And here we are, 3 years later, we've raised millions and millions of dollars, even before this large gift came in. We've been able to work with over 200 student athletes. We've helped student athletes get jobs. We've sponsored career fairs. We've gone out in the community. We've given away grants through our grant program. And so when we take a holistic approach, and we did that from day one, I'm very proud of our team and how we've stayed true to that. I'm proud of the support that we've gotten from our board, from athletics. I'm proud of our support from the university, from Carla Williams and President Ryan and Robert Hardy and others, to allow us to do this really, really new thing where there was a lot of bad press around it, but trusted Cav Futures, trusted myself to go out and represent our university well. So very proud of what we've accomplished to this point. There's still a lot of work left to be done. I think the one benefit going forward is that because we've lived it every day, we're a valuable resource for the university to be able to put together a strategic plan. And so, the biggest thing now is we've got to call on our, businesses, our alumni, our donors who own businesses to start to partner with these great student athletes, because that's the one thing that drew me to this. And this is the one that keeps me here, is our student athletes are incredible, incredible people.
When you look through the last few years and then you look through the last month, I feel like I feel like the last month could count as a year for your lifetime with all the stuff that you guys have to go through. What has always been the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is just educating people that this is the landscape, and this is the future of college athletics. And whether you like it or not, you cannot stick your head in the sand and say, I refuse to participate. And so I think we met a lot of resistance early on, just because there was a lack of information and a lack of knowledge out there. But I think being able to show and prove what we can do and how we can do it in such a positive way has helped us lift some of that resistance. But I think there's still a challenge of trying to get people to focus in on why Virginia needs to do this, why we deserve it, and how we've earned a seat at the table. And, I think there are people who can make significant strides in helping us get there. They just got to understand that Virginia needs it, not college athletics, but Virginia needs it.
Do you feel like this has been an eye-opening experience for some of those that maybe be on the fence, seeing how important it is to be so aggressive as Tony Elliott said he would be?
Yeah, it's let's put it this way. I've been around Virginia for almost 40 years and been around athletics. We've had a ton of success in athletics across all of our programs. And yes, including football. We were very successful for a period of time. But the investment and the ability to adapt to the landscape, that happened within the last 6 to 9 months, where everybody said, we're all in. And I've quoted that before. And when I say we're all in, the university, Carla Williams, Tony Elliott, we're all in. And our Olympic sport coaches have all been in. So everybody thinks about NIL and just football and basketball, but all of our coaches have been extremely aggressive. Brian O'Connor, he could manage anything that he wants. He could be a GM for any professional team. Andres Pedrosa, Sarah O'Leary. I mean, all of our coaches have really kind of jumped in with this, with the need to say it impacts us differently and in different ways, but we got to do this.
Do you find in your experience which one is harder? I know obviously the transfer portal is so quick and so aggressive, you kind of have to go in there, but is retention harder with the way the portal is? How I know the portal officially opens for a window, but that doesn't stop things going on behind the scenes. Is retention harder or getting new talent harder?
So I think that's a great question, but I think retention is a little bit of a challenge. Okay. And from the standpoint of there are student athletes who want to test the water, who think the grass might be greener on the other side. And those are conversations, at least we have experience and relationships with a lot of those student athletes, to let them know that everything that they're hearing may or may not be real. They're back in the recruiting process again. So I think from a retention standpoint, being able to talk to the student athletes and let them know why it's important that they stay here at Virginia, besides money, is something that I think has been a challenge. I think from a acquisition standpoint, The biggest thing is now is I think the dominoes will fall. People are seeing that we're serious about this. I think the type of student athlete that is coming here, the Hunter Osborns from Alabama and the Monroe Mills from Louisville, when they get here, then there are other people and other student athletes from other big time programs to say, yeah, Virginia is really, really serious.
Do you still feel like there's hurdles that Virginia still needs to kind of go past? I mean, this is for several schools. Every school has their own hurdle, right? Every school needs to do. Do you feel like Virginia, is there still something that you want to see moving forward, not as a program, but just as something that you guys learned that you want to see adapt or move forward, or you're kind of in a standstill because of the house settlement?
I think you're really kind of in a standstill, but I will say this, there has been a ton of progress made. I know there's a hot topic about admission standards and fighting that battle. And again, I know with Carla and her team, they have really worked extremely hard behind the scenes to work with admissions on getting student athletes in, and we've had a lot of success. And there's been some erroneous reports out there that, I don't know, a half a dozen or a dozen student athletes were turned away because of it. That's just not true. And so there's been a lot of progress made on that side. But in terms of hurdles, I think, we've just got to get Virginia back on that national stage where we can get some of these brand deals and brand opportunities. We've got to get more of our high level donors, the Alexis Ohanians, to come with their businesses and want to support our student athletes, because the more we can tell their story, the more we can put them out there on a national stage, the more people are going to want to work with our Virginia student athletes from a traditional NIL point. So we've got a big hurdle to face, I think, once this House settlement passes, because we still have to continue to go out and find endorsement opportunities and add to the NIL pot on top of the rev share piece.
All right. And I was going to end it there, but then you mentioned Alexis Ohanian, and I have to do a shout out for the Virginia women's basketball team, because it seems like they're turning things around now in the season. They're a little bit closer, obviously heartbreaking loss this past weekend, but that donation is a huge game changer. We talked about game changing for Virginia football. This is a game changer for Coach Mox and her group too.
No question about it. Not only the donation, but the association, the push to market, women's sports, and especially this women's basketball team. I think for what Alexis has done, it's only scratching the surface. I think we'll start to see the fruits of those. That donation come in very soon in terms of giving Coach Mox the ability to recruit, to have with rev share and all of those things. But I think just the association and the promotion of what we want to do here with our women's basketball program and all of our women's programs, I think is only going to help us for years to come. So that's always been a passion of mine and Cav Futures, was to be sport and gender equitable. And again, shining a spotlight like this on our women's basketball program by such a celebrity and famous alum, I think is going to be huge going forward. So I just wish that game would have turned out differently yesterday. I think if you would have put that game in the gym with no officials, we probably would have won that game. And it's a testament to Coach Mox and what they're fighting through, and injuries and getting to know each other. But they're there. They're very, very close, and I hope they make a strong run towards the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely getting closer and healthier too in some regards. So
Yes.
hopefully they'll turn it around. Now, one thing actually, you mentioned rev share. That's a big hot topic too among programs right now. Is that something that it's already been discussed? What the plan is? Obviously, Virginia has plenty of sports that are highly successful. Like, how do you handle something like that?
Yeah, I think that's more of an internal thing. But from what I know is that up until I guess a recent statement by the Board of Education, most of rev shares seem to be targeted towards football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. And now with Title IX being in play, it's going to be interesting to see how the universities adjust with their rev share spending. So I do think that it's a positive thing with having a hard cap, if you will. But now there's another, kind of wrench in it with Title IX. So we'll see how the university handles it. I haven't had any conversation since that came out last week, but it's definitely going to be it's going to be interesting between now and April.
Things aren't interesting enough, are they, Lo?
Never a dull moment in college athletics.
No. For anyone who's not understanding, is that Department of Education came out again, I guess, against NCAA, saying you have to have spread of your revenue equally among women and men's sports due to Title IX. So that kind of threw a little bit of, I guess, a wrench in people's, like Lo said, football and women's and men's basketball are meant to get a higher percentage, but now that might be changing with this. So it's a kind of a battle between legislation and NCAA and everyone in between, because everyone is having an opinion here left. So, but I appreciate your time answering our questions and giving us a behind the scenes look at your crazy month that you had in December.
Well, Jackie, you've always been great and fair to us, and we appreciate you getting the word out to all of our fans and donors. And it's been a great experience. Virginia, when I say we're on the rise and some good things are going to happen for this football program, and we'll get basketball in a much better place soon too. But I really am excited about getting to next fall and seeing what happens on the field with all the talent that we've kept and all the talent that we've brought in.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Lo.
All right.
And thanks again for Lo Davis for joining us on the show. It's always nice to have him on the show, kind of breaking down what's happening with college football in relation to Virginia football now and what is expected in the future, but also how Virginia is adjusting to the future. A lot of good information from someone who's behind the scenes a lot, and also adjusting himself to how the House settlement might change things again for college football and UVA. So I'm very grateful for Lo always being open to coming in the show the last few years with us. And thank you again for listening. It's nice to be back having the podcast kind of starting up again. We're going to start doing this on a weekly basis. Hopefully things are that chaotic. Obviously today was more of a Virginia football focused show. We are going to do a Virginia basketball show coming up here soon, hopefully next week, if nothing crazy happens between now and then. Will be a Virginia basketball centric show so that we can kind of see where Virginia basketball program is now and what the expectation is on the future and what we've been hearing about the situation around a coaching search and all the information there. So that's the expectation next week. We're going to start doing the podcast again every week. We just took a little bit of a break between the holidays, and also things were happening in the portal really, really quickly. I mean, visitor lists were being changed within 12 hours. I mean, guys that were saying that we're visiting were not visiting, or guys or agents were saying that hey, don't report this visit until they reach ground. So it was a very interesting time period if you were trying to do a portal. So a portal podcast, because things change rather quickly. And I usually record my podcast the day before so that it gives me time to edit and then post it the next day. So that a lot of things happened within 24 hours that logistically was hampering my podcast abilities. So now we're back to a normal routine. Kids are back at school and the portal is a little more quiet. So, but again, I do expect more activity in the portal for Virginia. So follow us on Wahoo's 24/7 and here wherever you listen to your podcast. So, but for right now, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and hope to see you guys here next week.